Hi guys, welcome back. I do want to go over with you today the new Azorius deck I'm using. It's a winner in the standard challenge. Um, the latest standard challenge they had on, let's see, it was October 29. It took first place, second place, and third place was owned by this same deck. So this deck is basically kind of similar to Simon Nielsen's World Championship deck that if you remember he played in the Magic Online World Championship, and he actually did pretty well with that. He made it into the top four, I believe. This deck follows that same kind of thinking that he had. The difference, I would say, that it's the most noticeable difference is instead of using Regal Bunnycorn, the newer style deck that people have been playing with now is actually subbing in the Fairy Mastermind. So instead of the Regal Bunnycorn, you just have this for extra card draw, which does actually help you get out other things faster. So I do like that switch. Another difference between I think Simon Nielsen's deck and this one is that we're swapping in now the one virtue of loyalty, so that's pretty good. I think the rest is pretty similar, I guess, to what Simon Nielsen had. So I like that we have three win cons here. So it's not just Harbin. People get confused and they say, well, we don't have enough soldiers to make it's not just a Harbin victory win con you have here. You have three win cons. You have Virtue of Loyalty win con, where you get your creatures buffed enough to where they're strong enough to take out the opponent. You have Wedding Announcement win con, where you're same thing. You stack the wedding announcements up, and you're able to accumulate big stacked creatures and overwhelm the opponent basically. And you also still have the Harbin win con, so it's not that you don't have enough soldiers to pull off this Harbin win con. It's just that you're adding extra win cons. So the other thing people get confused about is it's not pure aggro deck if you're playing this kind of deck. It's like a mid-rangey kind of deck. You have a little bit of control element with the Zephyr Sentinel and the Werefox Bodyguard. So remember the Zephyr Sentinel can actually save your creatures by pulling them off the battlefield if you flash it in. So that's the use of that card. Same thing with the Werefox Bodyguard. You could actually save your own creatures, or you do have the option to go and capture one of their creatures. So I agree a lot of the time you're going to go and capture one of their creatures, but there are certain times you maybe want to use it to save one of your own creatures, for example, your Harbin or something like that. So I think it is useful. The other things are in the deck are the Recruitment Officer, Lunarch Veterans. We need Lunarch Veterans for very aggressive decks. For example, Mono Red, Mono White. These are very key to holding off the aggro from those kind of decks. So what you're going to want to do with Mono Red, Mono White is get these Lunarch Veterans out early. Then I guess ideally what you would get out next is probably Resolute Reinforcements to start gaining life, you know. And then as you're adding creatures along the way, it just makes you gain lives. So what happens with mono red and mono white is they come off with this very strong aggro, right? But what happens is, yes, at first they do have you kind of pinned down, but what happens is this deck eventually starts to take control. Once you get some wedding announcements out, once your creatures start to get buffed, once you get a Knight Errant out, for example, once things become big enough to where mono red can't deal with them, then you actually take control and win the game. So I have done okay against mono red. I would say this deck is a best of 3 deck, but that does not matter too much because you can play it in best of 1, and that's what I've been doing. I actually used a similar deck to this last season. I made it all the way to Mythic, so it's definitely possible. Here's what we have for sideboard if you are playing best of 3. So I will post all of this in the description under the video. And that's basically what you have for this deck. So what do we not cover here? Make Disappear. Okay, so Make Disappear is going to be very important for domain ramp. Basically, you don't want them wiping your creatures, so they get to the point where they're either going to put in like the Invasion of Zendikar. You could choose to counterspell the Invasion of Zendikar for domain ramp, or you could choose to counterspell their Wipeout. but you have to be able to counterspell their wipeout. That's what I've noticed for domain ramp. So you can try and hold them down early, or you can counterspell the wipeout. There's two ways to go about it, but either way, it does work, and it beats domain ramp as long as you can get that counterspell timed correctly for domain ramp. Other decks, Esper, Golgari, it fights pretty well with them. So I haven't really had too much trouble with the different decks out there. Anyways, please do try it. I mean, it's a great deck. I've loved playing with it. And please do like and subscribe to me if you can, because that will help me out a lot with growing the channel and getting new content out. Thank you very much.